Hello, and welcome to the Clone Zone, a podcast presented by the students of S.H.I.E.L.D. We're reading through the entire shit show that is the infamous 1990s Spider-Man clone saga, and I am Billy.
And I'm Mike, and somehow you're in my box this week.
Magic.
And I am Vincent.
And before we get started, sponsor this week, I've been reading Batman Cataclysm, an infinitely better 2-year crossover for a much better character.
And for a change of pace, a new addition to the show. This is not a sponsor. This is a dedication, and this is probably going to be weird. This is definitely going to be weird. But in honor of Black History Month, I'd like to dedicate this episode to the life of Dwayne McDuffie and Milestone Comics. And in honor, here is a whole lot of hardware issues.
I watched him get these out of our mailbox.
That is a fact. So this episode, we are covering the story arc Web of Death. We're back to Peter Parker in Amazing Spider-Man 397 to 398 and Spectacular Spider-Man 220 to 221. The teams are mostly the same, but one slight change and one major change. J.M. DeMatteis and Mark Bagley are still on Amazing Spider-Man, and the Spectacular team is Tom DeFalco and Sal Buscema. But two details on the Spectacular. Todd DeZago is no longer scripting under DeFalco's plots. And the big creative change we have here is that Bill Sienkiewicz is now inking Spectacular. And we'll get to our reactions to that.
The art on issue looks like Bill Sienkiewicz art.
Yeah. We'll get to deeper reactions when we get there. So starting off, do you guys have any thoughts on this first cover with Stunner? Our first view of Stunner.
I think it's a pretty bad cover.
Yeah, it's pretty terrible. I mean, I don't like the overall layout of the cover. It's not that bad. Like, it's kind of fine, but like Stunner has some serious like broken back syndrome. Like, her spine is just screwed. Some nice 90s comic art. But also, like, at the same time, you can see, I mean, we've commented on this a bunch, pretty much every episode, but you can see Bagley's cartoony style in, like, her face, and then obviously Peter's proportions. So moving into this, we saw Kane in the last Ben Reilly arc. He was stalking everyone and eventually killed Grim Hunter. But in this arc, increasingly more so than the last one, Kane is just stalking someone every like 5 pages. It's pretty creepy.
He's got nothing better to do, though.
I mean, yeah, that's entirely accurate.
I mean, he could find a better costume, but
that is
true.
I
like his costume, though.
I don't.
Well, it's like, I mean, it's just so ridiculous that like you have, in a way, it's like this is impressive that he just looks so stupid.
Well, it's like he just silently stalks someone for 4 issues and then just breaks someone's neck and then just moves on to the next. He's basically Roman Reigns. He just destroys everyone that we like and has a long-standing history, and for no reason other than we have to make him important because he has to matter. In order to get him over, so to speak, is we have him kill a bunch of people that we already...
So, off the bat, Kane is stalking Peter Parker, well, it's Spider-Man, and Peter's still dying from the last time we saw him when he was poisoned by the Vulture. And we go back to nihilist Peter Parker. He questions whether he just wants to die.
I hate this. It's like he's been like this since like the second Carry On stuff.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Well, I mean, at least they call attention to it, and like he's kind of fixed at the end of the sort of, not really, but he has some memories or visions of being submerged in some kind of tank and hooked up to machinery. And
it's the same panel, I swear. Even when we get to the Sienkiewicz art, it's still the same fucking panel.
Yeah, it's been subtly, not subtly, but it's been hinted before. But this is the first time, like, it is now, like, once you see that panel, it is now super obvious that they're leading towards Peter Parker being the clone and Ben being the real one. or they're both clones or something like that. It's obvious. It's completely obvious now that Peter's a clone. But he passes this off as a headache because headaches give you false memories of being in a test tube. I don't know.
I mean, it's happened to me.
Never happened to me.
Two versus one. So Billy, you might want to get checked out. You might be a clone.
Might be bipolar disorder.
Damn.
So then Doc Ock stumbles upon a weakened Peter, one of his greatest foes, and at this point, his last stories in reverse order were the Lethal Foes of Spider-Man miniseries, which is like this dumb miniseries written by editor Danny Fingeroth, focusing on the villains more so than usual. Dr. Octopus also had a prominent appearance in Jim Valentino's Guardians of the Galaxy series, which I didn't bother even trying to figure that out because that series is set like 1,000 years in the future, but it's also some kind of Infinity War tie-in. I don't know what was going on. And then his last actually important appearance was Eric Larson's Revenge of the Sinister Six arc in Adjustless Spider-Man. And at this point, that's a few years ago. That's still like before Image is technically founded. But what did you guys think of seeing Ock?
He's got a very nice, crisp white suit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I liked his suit.
I like him in this infinitely more than I like Spider-Man.
He's the best character in these 4 issues.
Yeah. And I also want to note that when he picks him up, in the reflection of his glasses, it's supposed to be Spider-Man, but it just straight up looks like Deadpool.
Yep, it looks like Deadpool.
Yeah, because they don't do the webbing lines. He's got his trademarks shades basically. Sometimes he has goggles, sometimes he just has like sunglass looking things. But of course it's raining and I'm pretty sure it's nighttime. And I don't know how you guys feel about Doc Ock. Obviously, like all of us are influenced in some way by the Spider-Man 2 film, which had a pretty good portrayal of him. But I like this depiction as opposed to when they go like full on like ridiculous bowl cut, or like when they make him look very old or very overweight.
No, he looks fine here.
Yeah. Well, he looks fine here, and we'll get to it, but he looks different in the spectacular issues, which I thought was weird.
I'll say this though, like I like Ock as a villain. Like I genuinely like Ock. I just think a certain writer named Dan Slott uses him way too much.
Yeah. Well, I'll circle back to that as well. But the title page of this issue is a shot of Ock holding Spidey with lightning cracking in the background. I think it's a good shot as far as Bagley at this point. And then we get more meta commentary from a villain that Ock doesn't like how Spidey has changed. He used to enjoy their fights together. He respected Spidey for playing honorably, but he's become, quote, as much the bloodthirsty vigilante as those other so-called heroes.
Which I'm trying to figure out like what heroes they're directly referencing with that.
I mean, it's just like Punisher, I guess. Ghost Rider. Yeah, Ghost Rider, and then just in general, like you have teams like X-Force and the New Warriors that are slightly more violent than a lot of the teams of the past. Characters like that. And then there's this bar scene. What did you guys think of Stunner's official entrance?
Why does she just walk in and trash the bar?
Well, before she trashes the bar, she like propositions. She kind of propositions every dude there as a threat. It's really weird.
Yeah, it was awkward. Didn't really like that.
But I don't know. It's kind of interesting.
Like not able to support her upper body, by the way.
Yeah. So she's this giant blonde chick, and she has this weird, terrible, spiked red and black costume. And
she looks like she's a member of the Road Warriors tag team.
I can't confirm or not.
If after this podcast, look up the Road Warriors tag team.
Oh yeah,
Animal
I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, she looks like she's like the valet for them.
Yeah. She has some interesting lines in this like weird threat though. I thought they were like kind of funny. She's like, "Did you hurt your hand beating your wife?"
I didn't.
And
I'll say this about Stunner though. I don't not like her. I think she's fine. Like she's not detracting anything from the story.
I mean, yeah, I mean,
more enjoyable. I think
she's just like, I mean, she has a certain like charm to her, but she's just muscle so far. She like hints at like an origin and backstory, which may be tragic or something like that, but she never like we never get any of that. And
she also just doesn't. She doesn't seem evil. She just seems like she just causes like kind of like. Well, I guess kind of like Harley Quinn now. She just kind of like likes to cause chaos.
yeah.
Like I guess she's she has the appearance of an Amazon because she's so tall and strong. I guess that's what they're going for with her. But like I don't know if she's a mutant or like genetically enhanced. Like we're not really told anything.
Yeah, I don't know her origin at this point. I don't. I noticed this was just like it was just like one or two panels that stuck out to me like this, but the coloring sometimes, especially there's like one panel that's a close up of Stunner's face, and they're like trying to experiment with like a little bit more realistic skin tones and shading, like where like different parts of her face are different tones, and it's just terribly failing. Like I'm assuming their colorists are trying to.
We're looking at it right now, and it looks like it's like drawn by like a completely different artist.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. It actually, honestly, I mean, of course, I'm doing this partially just to get the references, but it honestly reminds me a little bit of the coloring of the '90s Valiant, where their coloring looked totally different from like Marvel and DC. And so she just demolishes this bar and beats everyone up. And then Doc Ock steps in and just drops a bunch of cash in front of the bar owner and is like, "You can repair the damage." And like, there's no reason why she did this.
Yeah, like she just does it. But I'm like, at least like they paid for it, and I guess like I don't know. It was just weird.
So we learned that she's auto squeeze.
Yeah. Now, who do you prefer, Anna Maria or Stunner? I think I prefer Stunner.
Stunner. I mean, it's a different scenario. And Otto is like has his own anxiety where he feels that he's lost touch with his real self, Otto Octavius, while Spidey is doing the same thing. And then he's like going into this like identity crisis breakdown, and Stunner's like consoling him, and then she bolts away like randomly, and he starts yelling for her to come back. And I didn't get this part at all because later, whatever she does next, like it seems like he knew exactly what she was doing.
She's addicted to causing chaos, so she has to go out and cause more chaos.
Yeah, but like they don't come back to this like storming away bit at all. Like I don't. This was so that like last few lines.
One thing I've learned is that we're not really going to come back to any of the intricacies of these stories.
Yeah.
Just things are just going to drop.
So then picking up from some of the other subplots, Mary Jane is finally back home, and so is her cursive lettering.
Yeah, and I'm going to be honest, I kind of skimmed through these parts with her because they are just so fucking hard to read for me.
It's annoying.
Like you can get the gist of what she's saying by just skimming through it anyway. Yeah. Like, all right, yeah, I'm sad Peter's not here. I want to be with Peter. Will he still like me? Yes. Yeah, he will. Like,
why does she still like him as a better?
Yeah, yes. That's.
And so Stunner ran off to beat up Spidey, but like after she's already heard from Ock that like he kind of needs help, sort of.
Well, she's got the state Peter Parker is in. He's not going to come to Doc Ock willingly, so I kind of get it.
And she gives us like a little bit of like her background and personality. where she goes into this like rant to Peter where she's like, she was a tomboy. She doesn't like stereotypically feminine stuff like cooking and sewing, but
she's also great at that.
She's still very good at cooking and sewing. So you could say she's the perfect woman. And she sees like super heroics as just a game. She calls Spidey out for his like nihilist, boring attitude, just like Akaz called him out.
You mentioned boring. That's kind of what all these Peter issues have been so far, because he's just, as of right now, he's just an unlikable asshole. Like, he just...
Yeah.
So by the end of this arc, hopefully this is the end of it, because if it continues, these Peter issues are just going to keep being the slog that they are.
Yeah. So she knocks Spidey out, and then Otto shows up, and apparently he set this up. But that's what I'm saying is, like, we didn't see him, like, tell her, go beat up Spidey. She just runs away, and he's actually mad at her. But then he totally, like, claims that, like, this was a plan. It doesn't make any, like, this plotting didn't make any sense to me.
It's almost like it's bad writing.
Yeah, I mean, yes. And also, all right, here's the thing, and I would want Matt here with me if he was on this episode to confirm some of this. So at the end of this first issue, Otto takes off Spidey's mask, and well, as we move forward, he wants to figure out what's wrong with Peter Parker, but there's no reaction, and there's no real reaction later to unmasking Peter. And I believe the deal is that he unmasked him before and like totally learned that he was Peter Parker. And in fact, that was like significant because like Otto at that point had like a kind of like a personal connection to Peter Parker as well. It's kind of like the movie, but
you mean like Peter Parker somehow has a personal connection with all of his villains? That's never happened before.
But then it was one of those just like really stupid plots where like somehow Peter Parker convinced Otto Octavius that he's not Spider-Man, and Otto just went with it. And like I guess I mean, they don't actually spell it out here, but I think the implication is like Otto unmasks him is like, oh yeah, it is Peter Parker. I was fucking stupid to have like thought that it wasn't for like 10 years. And like there's one line too at some point.
He just doesn't care. That's what I took it. Like it doesn't matter to him.
There's one line too at some point where like he almost gets meta with it and like basically says like that the writing like was stupid, or like I mean that's essentially what they're saying is like the writing, like they're calling out that previous plot. All right, so moving through. What about this second cover? Do you guys like this?
Well, we're gonna get into this. I think this cover's pretty boring, honestly. The MJ cover, like, yes, I'm surprised they had the big pregnancy reveal in Spectacular and not in Amazing Spider-Man. I thought that was more interesting. That the reveal. I mean, the second in the B book, not the A book.
I mean, it would also make some sense. Like, they're like the Peter books are in these two titles, and you got to figure out what part of at what point in the 4-part story are you going to reveal it. So it's probably just coincidence. Like we want to reveal it halfway through, so it's just going to end up in Spectacular.
I don't know. I feel like still more people are always going to be reading Amazing Spider-Man than Spectacular Spider-Man. So when you're going to drop a big bombshell kind of news like that, I feel like it should be an Amazing, not in Spectacular.
I mean, but also at this point, like in the heat of the Clone Saga, I can't imagine many people are only reading one title, even if it's Amazing.
Well, yeah, if I'm reading the books at this point, I'm starting to get really fucking pissed.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is I can imagine like the idea, like the desire to do that, but if you're only reading one of these books, you literally have no idea what's going on, and you might as well be reading nothing. But obviously we've gone.
This company went bankrupt.
Yeah, we've gone back and forth so much on Buscema and Buscema's MJ, and obviously this covers like it's not dynamic or anything, and like we already knew this was the thing. But all that being said, though, like if you were to lay out every single cover in the entire Clone Saga, like obviously this is going to be like one of the like 5 to 10 that you're like, all right, if I were to just show like covers to show the plot line of the Clone Saga or like the most iconic moments, this is going to be one of them. Obviously,
Who drew this cover?
Buscema, and I assume Sienkiewicz also made the cover.
Really? It looks like it was drawn by. I was just about to say his name. I don't like him. You do. He did Iron Man Year One and like, I'm not. No, Season 1 and stuff. Howard Chaykin. Looks like Howard Chaykin drew this.
No, I'm pretty sure it was Buscema.
Yeah, I mean, it just looks like a Howard Chaykin cover, even for like the way it's inked and colored too.
Yeah. So that's the thing we've been talking about how like the art differences between the Ben Reilly books and the Peter books, and one thing we've said is that the 2 Peter books look nothing alike, and immediately on this first page, it's night and day between Bagley and Buscema.
Oh yeah.
It's this really moody shot of Otto doing some science stuff with his arms. And like I said, Buscema's now going full on bowl cut with Otto. Also, he changed suits. Did you notice that?
Yeah, he's like in a beige or tan suit now.
Yeah, but like at some point later, he says like a few hours have passed. But even still, like I guess it sort of makes sense because it was raining. But like Stunner's still in her costume. I don't know. That seemed weird to me. It seemed like,
let's be honest. There's not going to be many clothes that fit Stunner.
Yeah. That seemed like either a mess up or like just a pointless change. Like, sure, it was raining, but like you might as well just keep it. It's going to confuse people.
Because there's no continuity and the editing's terrible.
Well, the editing has some issues, definitely. But did you notice it is snowing?
Is it? It was raining in the last.
Yeah, I don't think it's not yet. As far as like how we're talking through it, I think it's actually in like the third part. But halfway through the story, it starts snowing, which it did in the Ben Reilly story as well. And that was my big question. So the editors are paying attention.
The villain should be wearing the same clothes.
Yeah, they're paying attention to some things. But so Sienkiewicz is inking Buscema. This is his first work on Spider-Man besides doing covers for the Mad Dog Ward arc, which was an Ann Nocenti crossover, which was literally right after Kraven's Last Hunt. And there was some really cool covers. People watching this and whatever, they should look them up later. Or maybe watch out for someone to submit them for Cool Cover Friday or something. But I've said I liked Buscema's work on this title for some of this, and he was getting pretty loose with his style, and I liked it. But Sienkiewicz takes the style and adds like a scratchiness to it. The art looks way darker, and like there's an uneasy quality to it. And like
it doesn't look like this should be for a Spider-Man book. I'll say that, but I actually kind of I personally like this better.
Yeah, I think it gels with Buscema, and like it works, like you said. But I don't know if this isn't what I want a Spider-Man title to look like at all.
Otto just looks fucking disgusting, like all the time.
Yeah.
If this would actually be the perfect art for like a Daredevil book.
Yeah. But then on the other hand, like if this was like if Sienkiewicz was just doing like if he did every issue of the arc rather than just half of it, like I could understand if it was just for like an arc, just for this plot line where Peter's dying and like there's questions of whether he's a clone and stuff like that. But we'll definitely have to check back in as we see more Sienkiewicz on this title.
It's well, I think it's also so jarring because you go with Mark Bagley and his colors are always very bright and vibrant and very full and dynamic, and then you go to this where it's kind of white, where it's kind of muted and washed a little bit and much dark. Like you're kind of viewing it through a pair of sunglasses because it's darkened. So like it's just a very kind of hardcore change.
Yeah, but I think did you say something about the Joker earlier? I don't know. You made some comparison, but
To
Otto
what?
basically
Like,
goes into
episode?
this.
Or was I talking when I was talking to you earlier, like the other
I
day?
don't know. No, in this episode, but you said something. I don't know.
I
In this episode, but you said something. I don't know. You said something.
I didn't say anything about the
All right.
Joker.
But Otto sees himself as like Spider-Man's perfect foil. Like that's how he explains it. And he kind of sees his interplay with Spider-Man as a game. And I thought it was pretty reminiscent of like a lot of the interpretations of the Joker, in stuff like Killing Joke and like Scott Snyder's run, where it's like the Joker can't exist without Batman and vice versa.
I mean, that's one interpretation. I kind of go with that.
Yeah.
I don't really think that for Ock.
Well, yeah, I'm just saying like that's the way he's explaining it.
I mean, if the way, I mean, it kind of feel the way I if we want to look at the way I view these villains, like Joker and Goblin are the same for Spider-Man and Batman, and then like Two-Face and Ock are probably the same.
Yeah.
It's more that Ock doesn't think that he can exist without Spider-Man, but he never says that Spider-Man couldn't exist without him.
Yeah.
At least for the Joker, I think the Joker knows that in order to really fully function, he needs Batman.
So then I like this part. Otto tries to call Aunt May to tell her
This
about
is
Peter.
fucking stupid, but I laughed. I laughed at this.
But Aunt Anna picks up and tells him she's had her stroke. And for those unaware, and then he sends Aunt May flowers. And for those unaware, this is because Otto was a tenant of a building that Aunt May owned at some point. And then he tried to marry her to inherit a small island on which some kind of like nuclear facility existed. And again, I wish Matt were here because he's a fan of Jerry Conway, but I think we can acknowledge that was a really stupid plot. The whole Otto trying to marry Aunt May.
We say it's stupid, but it's classic at this point. Everyone knows that.
Yeah, I mean it's so funny and ridiculous, but like even in the 70s, it was kind of ridiculous. And Kane's on his stalking again. This time he's stalking Stunner. And did you guys notice that his costume changes like halfway through this arc?
He has eye and shit now.
Yeah, like
half his face.
Yeah, half his mask changes.
Also, he stalks MJ in this issue, and he sheds a single tear.
I didn't notice the tear, but that's ridiculous.
You didn't notice the tear? Also, the color of his eye changes in 2 panels. It's red, and when he's crying, it's orange.
The tear.
I don't know. I don't understand that at all because, like, I mean, we haven't seen Kane under his costume since like his degenerative stuff went really crazy. But like, is he like this demon thing? Like, he has this giant gaping red eye and like dark weird skin.
Well, he can't be because years later we have the spectacular the Scarlet Spider book, and he's like regular human guy. So
no, there is an explanation for that sort of because that's after
Spider Island, isn't it?
Yeah, it's coming out of Spider Island. He gets turned into like a spider, and then he gets basically like resurrected.
Are we reading Spider Island for this show, by the way?
Yeah, eventually.
Oh boy, like in 90 episodes.
So wait, Billy, you know the basics of Spider Island, right?
Yeah.
Everyone in New
I
York
think
is
Spider
terrible.
Island's fucking retarded.
Do you like the idea? I think it's hilarious. I think it's awesome.
Me too.
And the story's cool.
I think it's stupid. I think it's stupid.
Then we get another trademark scene.
It wasn't it. Well, this is a discussion for another. It should have been like a full Marvel event. Like it shouldn't have just been a Spider-Man event. Like if you're gonna give everyone in New York spider powers, it should be like a Marvel crossover event.
No, I mean it sort of was. There was like a tie-in. I mean, it was weird stuff, but there was a tie-in Cloak and Dagger miniseries, Venom tied in.
But yeah, but the Avengers and Captain, like anyone who
they show up in the Spider-Man
line-wide crossover.
I guess. I mean, I don't know. They've never really done that with Spider-Man. I can't think ever that they've ever like fully censored a line-wide crossover on Spider-Man.
I guess War, but he's just part of that, so it doesn't really count.
Yeah. Spider Island is probably the closest thing they've done.
Which is weird because I remember when that was coming out because I actually started picking up Amazing Spider-Man in issues right as Spider Island was wrapping up because the end issue is the hint that him and MJ might be getting back together, and I stuck on it for about 6 months, and I was like, I see where this is going. It's not happening. And
yeah,
I think
she plays a major role.
Well, I walk around ends of the earth.
Yeah, and also, I mean, again, it was a thing that was contained in the Spider-Man books, but like the Avengers show up for Maximum Carnage, but they pretty much literally just show up at the very end to like take people to jail. It's actually pretty funny. But so we get another one of those trademark scenes of someone talking to comatose Aunt May, and this time it's MJ.
Yeah, great. Move on. I don't care. Like we've had how many times of this? Yeah, great.
With her cursive lettering. I think Sienkiewicz. It's worth noting like how Sienkiewicz impacts like the portrayal of the different characters. I think his MJ compared to just like how Buscema has been up to this point. Like I've already liked Buscema MJ, and I was kind of scared that Sienkiewicz was going to make it like really weird. But I think I actually liked his version of MJ a little bit with Buscema.
Better. Billy, as the very much hater of Buscema's MJ, is Sienkiewicz on the book helping? Yes or no?
Yeah.
But at the same time, how do you guys feel about what Sienkiewicz does to Aunt May?
Everyone just draws her more and more decrepit and like decomposing. Anyway,
she literally looks like
she looks like the Crypt Keeper.
She literally looks like she has wrinkles inside of her wrinkles with Sienkiewicz.
Listen, she was alive to see the pyramids built, alive for 1776. Just let her die already.
So Otto,
the first lover.
Otto may have cured Pete, but Pete wakes up, but it's very painful, and he immediately just knocks the shit out of Stunner, which I feel like kind of nullifies like all the buildup you had for her.
Yeah. Well, the funny part is that like Peter gets away, and then like he finds MJ and they reconcile and stuff, and then like we cut back to Ock and Stunner, and Ock's like, "Fuck! It's only a temporary. It only works temporarily."
Yeah. But it is temporary. But the spider is gone, and the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man is back, or so we think.
Yeah, or so. I'm still not convinced yet.
I just want to.
All right, I do have to talk about another one of these Kane stalking scenes. So he's stalking MJ, and his narration is that he can't guarantee her safety, and something. But his entire motive in the Ben Reilly arc for like killing Grim Hunter for no reason is that he had like a vague guess that Grim Hunter might kill MJ. So he's clearly concerned with her like life for some reason, but now he's not. It doesn't make any sense. But then, yeah, Pete and MJ reconnect, and we get one of those nice full-page kisses. Which it was a fine page. And then instead of Kane, Otto's stalking them in the street, and he like sees them. They're like shadows through the window, and then he like makes just a weird smile smirk, but like it's not clear if he's happy or if he's like whatever. And then Pete and MJ, they're reconnecting and they're eating crappy pizza, they're drinking orange juice, they're listening to Frank Sinatra, and they're about to have sex.
Typically moody Frank Sinatra.
Yep. I thought that was
kind of night that you spent by yourself this evening, right?
Yeah. And so then he wakes up in the morning, and the antidote didn't fully work, so he has something to share with MJ, but also so does she because she's pregnant. And
I care, but I know what happens to the baby.
So what did you think of the reveal? I'm mostly.
I mean, you heard my take on it. I would have done it in Amazing Spider-Man.
Yeah. I don't know. Did you cringe at the dialogue when she says you hit another jackpot?
I thought it was like whatever. Okay, great.
I mean, it's what you expect, like just tropey. Like I wouldn't have necessarily done it differently, but I still thought it was a little cringy.
Real people don't talk like that.
And Pete has a crazy look. I mean, as any man would when he learns he's going to have a baby that he hasn't specifically been planning for. But then there's also the pesky issue of the fact that he's dying.
Yeah.
And he's just not going to tell her.
She can figure it out when he dies.
Yeah. And I don't know if you've been reading like the little dumb teasers, which are kind of pointless, but the teaser for this part at the end is the next issue of Spectacular will say goodbye to a character we've known for 30 years. If you didn't know anything else, would you guess it was Otto? I guess it could possibly be Aunt May.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's Otto or Aunt May, and since we just got the reveal of the baby,
It wouldn't be MJ.
it wouldn't be Aunt May, and it wouldn't be MJ. So it's got to be.
And it's not like they're going to pull in someone totally random. There's been literally no one else in this arc. It's not like Jonah's been around or anything. So this third cover, I thought this third cover was bad. It's Bagley having Spidey and Ock fighting, but are they even actually fighting? It's just a weird cover.
Better than the other one.
That one served a purpose though.
This is where we're starting to see the text on the cover I kind of associate like these boxes with just a bad time of Marvel. Like it says, even if Spidey wins, he's a dead man. Like there's like 4 different fucking fonts on it. It just looks disgusting.
Yeah.
It's like they got the what was the program? I don't know if you used it in school. What was the comic? What was the program, like Comic Maker or something?
I have no idea. I know what you're talking about though.
Yeah, it looks like someone used that and just used every word art filter they could on it just to get as many on there. Like a kid making a PowerPoint presentation, he wants to put every like fancy transition after a slide.
Yeah. So then Peter literally does a flip after learning he's going to be a father. Thought it was for like 5 panels. I thought it was kind of funny.
I thought so too.
Yeah, I thought it was all right. Like, oh, okay, this is kind of cool. This is kind of fun. And then he's like, I'm dying again.
Yeah, and he's still not going to tell her that. He's like, maybe eventually. And then I thought it was interesting that MJ's actually acknowledging she's like worried. She's like, what if that radioactive spider bite is going to affect my baby?
Radioactive spider semen.
And it was at that moment that Carrie Andrews thought, Spider-Man Rain?
Yeah, I thought that, and I mean, we'll get to this as well eventually in an alternate dimension, an alternate timeline, but it kind of does affect the baby.
Well, which alternate timeline? Because we got like 3.
I'm talking about Mayday, like Spider.
Yeah, I know you're talking about Mayday, but I mean, we can also now reference Renew Your Vows and, like you said, Spider-Man Rain.
Yeah. I think Mayday is like Earth 295, or maybe it might be 95. I'm not sure.
What's her name in Renew Your Vows?
I don't remember.
Matt was here. He'd know. He read that book.
Yeah. All right. So then MJ is with Aunt May, or no, they go to Aunt May to tell her comatose body that they're pregnant.
And then Aunt May's spirit could hear Peter.
Yeah, and there were like these black thought bubbles, and she's like talking, and she's questioning whether she just wants to die or come back to see the baby. I'm like, what is this? It's so weird.
Okay, but the next weirder part is we cut to the restaurant, right? And like Peter like drops the glass because he's going dizzy. And this random guy comes up and he's like, "You don't look well." And MJ's like, "Well, we know everyone at staff who are you?" And this is never brought up again. What the fuck was that?
It just fucking vanishes and they don't ask any questions about it.
Yeah, I don't understand this at all. Like, was it supposed to be like an agent of Doc Ock's?
Yeah, that's what I took it as. But like, what in the?
But they don't explain it. I didn't understand that. That made no sense. I was also thinking like if it was like the detective or something, and then this is going to lead to like when they arrest Peter from some of the other plot lines. But like I don't know what this is. And then so Otto explains his goals, his weird warped like I have to heal you because we have to fight each other goals. And Peter grabs his hand. I mean, I thought it was just those like last two panels are interesting. Just seeing those kinds of interactions, like the hero and the villain, like shaking hands because they're like reluctantly doing this one thing. And then this stunner part makes no sense. She's just like frolicking in the snow and destroying trees.
I think it's like Mike said, where she just has to cause some sort of pain.
And Kane is stalking her again. And then Otto and Peter, they're in the lab and they're working together on a cure. And he takes the cure, but it's like, did Otto double cross him? Because he like puts on his shades and like smirks and stuff like that. But then shit gets insane. Peter Parker turns into a ghost. Like halfway goes to heaven. He talks to Nick Katzenberg. And then Aunt May's ghost comes out of her comatose body and tells him to follow a star. And he goes like shooting into the air and shit gets psychedelic. And that's how the issue ends.
Not just any star. It's the fucking quote from Peter Pan.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
All I thought when reading this was that the shooting stars meme was in my head.
Yeah. So then this fourth cover, it's Otto grabbing Pete, and the cover text is "One will die." And I mean, it's super obvious, obviously. And so then we're back to the adventures of Ghost Peter Parker. He meets Uncle Ben and his parents, and he has questions at first. He has to confirm that his parents are not simulacras, and they're not clones, and there are no clones in heaven.
Yeah,
he doesn't have to worry about that.
His response to that is ambiguous. He's like, well, that's...
So therefore, if there's no clones in heaven, Peter Parker cannot be the clone.
I think that's why they made him have that response to the question.
Yeah.
Why tease it?
And then we cut to Otto, who's like, he's not even using shock paddles. He's just like shooting electricity into like Peter's like chest. I don't know what he's
using. He's like, wake, damn you.
And then back to Ghost Peter, and Harry Osborn as the Green Goblin tries to keep him dead. And then I think this last issue has like two panels that made me laugh out loud. And the first one is Otto Octavius giving Pete CPR.
Yeah, that was funny.
And so Pete's up, and then another panel, which not quite as funny as the one that's coming up, but Otto basically describes that he's like literally salivating over Peter Parker being healthy again because he's going to eventually fight him.
You didn't like when he kissed Stunner as well?
Yeah. And then Stunner calls the cops on Otto, and she ditches out. And Otto is going to willingly go to prison so that Pete can recover. But, like, that's not his plan either.
Yeah.
But he definitely says, like, he's going to escape from prison. I don't know. That was kind of weird. But then there's this double page, which is like Sienkiewicz goes like insane, and like this page looks like only Sienkiewicz did it. There's like all this like shadowy stuff going on with the cityscape, and like
And the
Spidey's
light,
whole
and like
face
the
is
light
blacked
of
out.
the light of the trucks. It's an awesome double page spread.
And so with Otto arrested, and I guess Peter didn't really pay attention or care that Stunner isn't there. So Pete brings home a crib. And Mike, what is this weird reference that MJ makes?
She makes a Bob Vila and Home Improvement reference. She says, Bob Vila, if your mom's not into home decorating shows, mine is, so this is why I know this shit. Bob Vila used to run a show on PBS called This Old House. I believe This Old House is still on. It was on Sunday mornings. I don't think Bob Vila hosts it anymore, though. I don't even know if Bob Vila is still alive. But he was the host of This Old House, which is like a fixer, he like fixed up old houses. And then obviously Tim Allen was on a show called Home Improvement before this is post drunk driving binge and pre the Santa Claus. So, and also pre Last Man Standing. So
yeah. So then Stunner was supposed to break Otto out of custody like pretty much immediately, which is not really how he explained the plan earlier. But Kane knocks her out with gas and then goes after Otto. And what did you guys like this Otto versus Kane fight?
No.
Nope.
Otto even tells him, he's like, yo, I give Spider-Man, Daredevil, and Cap a hard time. You can't do shit. And then he immediately just goes like, oh, yeah, I can, and breaks his neck.
I thought it was hilarious, though, because, first of all, a direct quote from Otto: do not be lulled into a false sense of security by the extra poundage I carry. I'm like, I feel like he's like trying to pick up the Peter Parker wit, too, like now that he knows that Peter's back and he can be an asshole villain again. And then he like name checks like the heroes that can reference his prowess. And so of course we're gonna have to reference when those things happen. So Dr. Octopus fought Daredevil in Daredevil 164, which is a few issues into Frank Miller's run as penciler, but before he took over the writing. And he fought Captain America in 259. Which is a bit after the Roger Stern and John Byrne run fell apart. So there was just a bunch of fill-ins, and then eventually James DeMatteis would take over, who at this point is now involved with Spider titles. And on the other hand, Kane, he tells Otto that he lets his actions speak for him. But he doesn't really have a choice because, like, even if he wanted to, Kane doesn't have any heroes that he can have co-sign him. It's not like Kane has fought these other heroes. And he doesn't have anything interesting to say either. And he also literally says, I have no antagonism towards you, Otto. But he still has to murder him for some reason. Like, I have no idea why he murdered Doc Ock. There's no reason at all. And this whole fight is intercut with Pete and MJ building the crib and being all happy. And then Kane puts the mark of Kane on Otto and snaps his neck or something.
He doesn't even put the mark of Kane. He literally just snaps his neck.
Well, yeah. Well, he puts the mark of Kane afterwards. In the final panel, Stunner runs to Otto in a pool of blood.
See, I thought that was just horrible drawing, and somehow he was just bleeding from the nose after having his neck broken. But I see now that that is not the case.
Yeah, so Dr. Octopus is dead, and that's pretty much the end of that story. But I'm going to go into some of the what's going on. So the pregnancy was Tom DeFalco's idea because he wanted something dramatic to lead toward the conclusion of the Clone Saga, which again is supposed to be like pretty much around the corner, like near Amazing Spider-Man 400. But it's going to be quite a ways past that. And since he was editor-in-chief at the time, obviously his idea went through. And then, as I've discussed, then shortly, But then shortly, Tom DeFalco is removed as editor-in-chief, and they do this stupid multiple line editors thing. And Bob Budiansky is the Spider-Man guy. And it may have, I'm not totally sure, but it may have been his idea to kill Ock, and they just wanted to hype up Kane, and they wanted to build Kane as this major foe. Which, I mean, that's kind of like wrestling. It's like, you gotta, this new gimmicky character, you gotta have him get put over by like characters that other people actually like.
But no, you don't put them over by putting the people against actually. You put them over by making them squash local talent.
Yeah. Well, this is poor wrestling management. And
I mean, Marvel, you can equate Marvel at this time to like WCW in the later years anyway. Both are just a mess.
Yeah. So this is just like they had him kill the far less important Grim Hunter in the Riley arc, which we did last episode. But Grim Hunter at least had only been introduced and used for one arc before that.
I mean, at least with Grim Hunter, it only hurts Grim Hunter. It doesn't really do anything. Kane doesn't really benefit from it at all. Here, it just kind of, I mean, it hurts Ock and it hurts Kane because, well, it hurts in hindsight because we know Kane is really just going to be pretty much a non-factor for the rest of his entirety as a character after the Clone Saga.
Yeah. And then they also,
again, until Spider Island, pretty much.
Yeah, they also wanted to clear room for new villains. And I mean, Kane himself, and then I guess we have Stunner now, but like, and we'll get a few more, but there's not many major new villains. Like, it's pretty rare to hit a home run on a new Spider-Man villain just because he had so many good ones built up like over the 60s and 70s that like you're not going to make one that sticks.
I think that's for anyone though. When's the last time a new villain was really, really good?
Yeah. I mean, really good versus like sticking around, being consistently used. Like this is just a totally random one, and I don't think it's even a good example. But like the one I thought of was Professor Pig for Batman.
Yeah, Professor Pig's a pretty good one. Thomas Hurt's pretty good too, but I mean he's pretty much. No, I know he showed up in Nightwing in Rebirth, but like, I really can't like. I mean, those are just Batman villains. When's the last time Superman had a new villain that was really good? Like,
I mean, I'd really have to think about that. I mean, one, and I don't think she's even shown up, but like Livewire, that's like very late '90s, early 2000s.
Well, Livewire wasn't even created for the comic.
Yeah, I know.
She was in the show.
Yeah, I know, but like new villain.
Which honestly, I would prefer Livewire be a Supergirl villain before she'd be a Superman villain.
Yeah. And then, Manchester Black, I guess, is an ongoing villain now, and that's like early 2000s.
Yeah, I mean, Manchester Black had the one story, and then he showed up in Rebirth. But like, yeah, I don't. It's creating new villains. I think what we're just trying to say is creating new villains for anyone is hard.
Yeah. And then here's an interesting fact. Apparently, there was even talk of spinning Kane off into his own series. But some editors and writers hated the idea since they still had the grudge against when they turned Venom good. And of course, that's ironic because Kane eventually would have his own series. 20
years later.
Yeah, and it's significantly Venom's. So.
Yeah.
Well, wait. I mean, he has two series. Well, he has. Wait, which series are you talking about? The Scarlet Spider series? I don't think it's that bad. I think.
What you said? You said worse than Venom, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Mike. What was the Venom title while Kane was Scarlet Spider?
Oh shit! That's right. Okay, yeah.
So, no. What Billy said is entirely true.
No, yeah, okay.
Despite the fact that the Scarlet Spider book.
My mind was on like Venom's like '90s series. Yeah. No, we were on Rick Remender Venom, so no, Billy would be entirely right in this scenario.
So Tom DeFalco, I didn't really pick it up in the issue, but apparently like he didn't want to kill Ock, and he like reluctantly wrote this. And then he was the one who.
He didn't want to kill Ock, and he was reluctant. Why did he write it?
Because because direction. But then he was the one who brought Ock back. He was resurrected Where did I put that? Shit. He's resurrected slightly after the Clone Saga. Yeah, so like after the Clone Saga, there was a bunch of like crap going on. Yeah, all right. So yeah, Ock is resurrected in Amazing Spider-Man 427 in October 1997, which for time and context, the final Amazing issue of the Clone Saga is 418. So like not even a year after the end of the Clone Saga, Doc Ock is back. And then obviously he's used for a few arcs in the mid 2000s from JMS and Paul Jenkins, and then Ock has been a big focal point of Dan Slott's soon-to-end decade-long run on Spider-Man.
He's been a fixture.
Yeah, and obviously a major part of this is Superior when he like became Spider-Man, basically. So we will see Otto again in this podcast. In fact, in that Scarlet Spider series, Otto and Kane come face to face again, like 20 years later. But it's worth noting because it's funny because the like one of the like cover text stickers on one of these issues describes it as the last Spidey Doc Ock saga of all time, which is not remotely accurate. But yeah, I mean, we were talking about like building new villains and Kane killing villains and all that stuff. It's kind of weird to consider the landscape of Spidey villains at this point. Norman Osborn's dead, Harry Osborn's dead, Kraven's dead, now Otto's dead. Venom isn't going to fight Spidey indefinitely. By this point, Kingpin is pretty much primarily a Daredevil villain. Sandman is still kind of a good guy at this point. So really all you have is Carnage, Hobgoblin, Mysterio, Rhino, Electro, Shocker, Lizard, Scorpion, and now I guess Kane. And that was a long list, but like, who are the A-stars? Who are the A-listers? Like Carnage and Hobgoblin?
I guess.
Especially as now, for a while, maybe we're going to have two Spider-Men. Like, is Ben going to have more villains? I don't know. The villain situation is kind of rough. So that's pretty much everything. Do you guys have any final thoughts on this story?
What's as far as looking ahead? What are we to expect in the next episode, Vince?
All right. So next episode is kind of sort of a down episode. Next episode is all about mourning Doc Ock. There's an entire mini series called Funeral for an Octopus, and we're going to read. Yeah, and we're going to read another interlude in Spider-Man Unlimited related to that. But obviously, shenanigans will go down. For Funeral for an Octopus, it involves both Peter and Ben, and stuff's going to happen. And then after that episode, we'll get back to the main plot, really.
Does Stunner stay around?
Yeah, she should show up a few more times in the Clone Saga, and then, I mean, she never becomes like a major villain, but she is used. I mean, Dan Slott actually used her a bit. Like, I think in the stories leading up to Spider-Verse, if not right after Spider-Verse, but like in that era, no connection to Spider-Verse, but she was used as a villain for an arc then. I mean, she's like a perfectly functional like D-list Spider-Man villain. If she does show up again, I'd want to get like literally anything more for her backstory and everything.
When she shows up again, is she still with Ock? Or
Well, she can't. Well, Ock's 6 feet under, so in order for her to be with him.
He comes back.
Yeah, I believe. Yeah, she like reconnects with Otto. In fact, she may appear in Superior. I have to double check, and I'll tell you privately off air. But she definitely does show up again, and I think she has connections later to Otto. But in the context of the Clone Saga, I believe she'll show up again because another character becomes a new Doc Ock, and so that creates some tension, I'm pretty sure, with her. All right. Thanks for watching. So tune in next week, and we'll talk even more about the legacy of Doc Ock.